Please stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for coming out on such a cold evening. Let me turn my speaker button on. Thank you for coming out on such a cold evening. The first item on our agenda would be a commission report by our Executive Director, Mr. Justin Cowling, concerning the Shelton Mason County Historical Society, third quarter report. And you only have 20 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. We've had this since this second quarter, I think, is when we started our building remodel, which is almost completed. We're doing some kind of last minute things, shelving and putting in a new counter, and that's really what we're at. The building's almost completely done. There's some spots kind of into the bathroom was the last thing that we held off on for a number of reasons. There's looking at making it ADA, which it's not right now, and there's other possibilities of grants and stuff like that that we could look for in the future, but the main building's completely done. All the water damage in the plaster's all been taken care of, and once we got into it, there ended up being quite a lot of it, where we took out some of the plaster walls up above from roof leaks, either in the corners before the new roof got put on 5 or 6 years ago, and where the old heater air conditioning units leaked too. And we found quite a bit of water damage too when they used to have radiators, which we didn't know until we started digging in, and they kind of destroyed a lot of the wood that was either had plywood or particle board put in instead of the old fir panelings. So we're in the final stages of that, which I'm really happy. It's longer than we expected, but it's coming together nicely. We're open now. We do have some starting to set up displays in the front where people can come in. We're helping people come in. We're doing a lot of research again for people and getting everything organized. So I'm happy to announce that. The other big thing that came up in the last few months is we lost our fairground museum. And as we were out of the port, so after Oyster Fest, we had till the Thanksgiving is what the port gave us to be out completely. And this last week we finished that up, which that was a pretty big task, getting everything together, boxing stuff up. We do have a shipping container that was purchased a number of years ago that was on port property, and we were able to fill that up with everything inside, along with a couple other free storage places from people donating space, which is good. So everything is safe and packed away. We really don't have access to anything that could be accessible right now, but it's at least safe for the time being. The hope is in sometime in the future that we'll have a second place out in the county. We were looking at, the board at one point in time was looking at out 101, somewhere up there for another second location to be able to display a lot of the stuff that we have. The other big things we've been working on, we're still pushing away at the website, redoing that, putting on a new platform, and relaunched it, and we want to be able to make it more of things to do in other like historical places in Shelton, Mason County, and it's also in the last few months, that's been the vast majority of our book sales are coming out. We're getting about last 2 months, I think, about $500 a week in book sales online from mostly out of state and quite a few in England and France too, which is, I think from there, a lot of railroad enthusiasts.
So $500 a week?
Yeah.
Man, that's fantastic.
Just been excellent. It's really taken off. So, last thing is our yearly calendar. We just came out with that, and I neglected to bring one, but I think it looks better than ever. Jan Parker did an excellent job this year, and we have those for sale for $10. And there's any question, thank you guys, and thank you for your support.
Any questions for Justin?
Yeah, I have a question. So the $500 a week in book sales is new books
Yeah.
and mostly from people who are railroad buffs?
No, overseas it's been railroad buffs, but no, it's everything. It's our best sellers are the railroad books and then books on Shelton. I think is what's really, but it's a little bit of everything.
Do you have any idea how the people who are from overseas that are buying the railroad books heard about where to buy them from?
I've talked to a few of them back and forth. A lot of people we have some books that are online, like Dr. Hammond, who doesn't publicize them anywhere. And we have some books that Pete Replinger has another one that if you search it, you find it for about $80. We're selling it for $40. So people are finding us through search engine, and Facebook has been
Wow, that's
really
great.
big too for us.
Tell them to come visit.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Justin.
All right.
All right. Thank
Any
you.
more questions? I was just going to say hi and thank you for your report. Now, on this, other than that phenomenal thing on the book sales, did you, while you were closed, you were closed like 3 months or so, did that kind of, I guess, it cuts back on your donations probably, because people can't do that, so.
Yeah, when we were there, we always had the door open. A hard part, a lot of our donation money comes from doing research for people. So we were still able to, a more limited capacity, help out at some point in time. Yeah, it was a down year for, summertime for money and donations coming in quite a bit, but we still had our car show and a couple other fundraisers to make up for that too. So it's,
Right. Well, it really looks nice. I appreciate what you're doing over there. So thank you very much for your report.
thank you.
All right, next is our weekly commission reports. Commissioner Moore, did you have anything to this week?
I do. Tomorrow, I will be attending the League of Women Voters monthly meeting, and our speaker this month, or our program this month, is on heroin and substance abuse in Mason County. Our own Les Watson is one of the panelists. They always do a great job with their programs, and so it is open to the public. Noon tomorrow at Olympic College Shelton Library. On Wednesday, I will be attending a ribbon cutting for Clippers Barber. On Friday, I have a Peninsula Regional Transportation Planning Organization meeting in Port Townsend that I will be attending. And that is everything on my calendar for this week. I do want to say one more thing, though. I'll share this. This is actually an ongoing group that I'm on, the Mason County Housing Coalition, and currently a committee of us are doing the grant allocations for this particular funding that is available as a result of the passage of ESHB 2163 in 2005. I don't know what the ESHB stands for, but it is something that the voters approved, a surcharge to county document recording fees. And this year we have about $300,000 to allocate, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not nearly what we need. This is to help with the unhoused and make sure that we get as many of the people off the streets and out of the woods and into housing and keep families in housing. So it's rewarding in the way that we do have some money, but it's really tragic to see how much greater the need is than what we have the money to give out. And part of that, it's housing as well as some of the organizations that have applied for the grant are for utility help. And I was really surprised to find out what the amount of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars already goes to utility assistance in Mason County. So it's rewarding, and I will be doing that for the rest of this week, and then we'll finish up next week and get our recommendations to the county commissioners. But that's it.
All right, Commissioner Olson.
Tomorrow I have a Mason Transit Authority Board, and I will try to make the league's meeting also. And then Thursday, I'm going to attend a family court graduation. And Friday, we don't really have a name for it, but it's a committee that we're trying to get the old St. David's Rectory converted to a youth drop-in shelter. And Commissioner Jeffries is on that, and Father Joe Michael, and myself, and Miles Nowlin, a few other folks that we're trying to figure that one out. So we don't have any clear direction yet, so it's a struggle. So anyway, that's my week.
All right. Wednesday, not tomorrow, Wednesday, I will be attending a Criminal Justice Board meeting. In the afternoon, I will also be attending that ribbon cutting for Clippers Barber. And Thursday and Friday, in the afternoons, we've been doing coalition calls, so we will be continuing to do that. But I was going to ask Commissioner Olson about the event on Thursday, Family Court, not Drug Court.
Right.
It's called Family Court.
Family court.
I'm not familiar with that.
This will be my first attempt at it too also, but it's similar to drug court in that they, with social issues affecting families, there's felonies involved, and it's the same principle that if they complete a series of training and educational courses, that their record is expunged, so to say. Tom may know a little bit more about that than I do. He's also involved in that if he wants to give us some more
Well,
info.
if he's going to speak at public comment, maybe I can give him an extra 30 seconds to see if he can give me a little information about that. Is that all right? A little trade and barter on that one? Okay. So that completes our weekly commission reports. Now is a general public comment period, so if we have anyone that would like to speak and they sign the little roscure there, we can see what we got. Oh, Mr. Tom Davis, why don't you come on up and speak and for 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Do you want to answer my questions first before you start about that family court?
Yes, Mr.
And
Mayor.
where is that located and the time on that?
It's in the same
Annex.
building that you attended for drug court. I believe it's usually at 11:45.
Yeah.
I'll be going to that one also. And what's nice about this is it's holistic in that it takes the whole family into account. Because if one person, especially a parent, has a problem, then the whole family is in crisis. And so you get more bang for your buck if you're looking at it from an economic point of view, because the whole family is involved in the therapeutic court system. And it's very moving, of course, because the graduates bring their family and their children, and they become better parents. So in that respect, it's different than drug court, where it's just an individual, but the outcome is the same, except it encompasses more people. So it's very nice.
Thank you very much for that information.
I'm here today to speak about the Veterans Memorial Building and the services that go on there as a little bit of a background. I'm the Veteran Mentor Coordinator for Mason County, and I work out of that Memorial Hall building, as do the Veterans Assistance Fund panel, the Advisory Committee for Veterans Assistance, and a whole slew of other altruistic endeavors that happen out of that facility. As you know, the facility itself, the county pays for it. It's a county building, and the county pays for the electric and the heat and so on. And all the volunteers, and they are volunteers in the extreme, in that sometimes money comes out of their pockets to take care of people who walk through the door when there's no emergency funds for immediate relief. There's an awful lot of effort, an awful lot of good that comes out of that Memorial Hall building. The city's participation isn't recognizable in that you really aren't a player in that, and that's why I'm here today, because you could be a player in that there are several. I think there are 7 spaces outside that Memorial Hall building that are not designated for the post office. We have a lot of folks that come that don't have handicap placards or that kind of thing, but they're older veterans, and some of the volunteers are not young, spry chickens either. And they use these spaces when they're available, but they're hardly ever available. And there's a whole slew of spaces that that provided for the post office across the street, and we just have that 6 or 7. And when I say we, it's not designated for the Memorial Hall, and I think you realize that. But so anybody parks there, and the people who come for the services and are in need have to find parking somewhere else. I'm not suggesting that all 7 spaces be used for the Memorial Hall, but I'm suggesting it would be appropriate if 3 or 4 of them at least were there to make access for people who are trying to do a lot of good, and also a little easier for the people who are showing up for those services. I know it opens the door to, well, if we do it there, we'll do it everywhere, but this is a special type of a situation. I mean, it is veterans, it is people who gave an awful lot, and I think they're worthy. I think they're the most worthy population in my mind of any exceptions that you could find your way to wiggling that rule a little bit. So we have 3 or 4 spaces right in front of that building. There are only one handicap space, and that is at the end of the ramp in the back of the building, and that is always filled. As a matter of fact, one of the Veterans of Foreign War volunteers uses that space because he can't make it up the stairs. Okay, so you got the thrust of if there's anything you can do to designate 3 or 4 spaces at the Memorial Hall, we would all greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Tom. Appreciate
Comment on that?
Sure.
Tom, I sit on the Memorial Hall Committee, and that's been discussed a number of times. In fact, I've talked with both Mike and Greg about it too, and we do have ordinances that, first we wanted to create a handicap space there, but the cost of it is pretty tough, and we're not required to do that. And at those meetings, we also had discussions that we can do special use permits, like designate, if they have an event or something where they need 3 or 4 spots or whatever, even all 7, that the city would, barricade those off so that they were reserved for the veterans there. And then also that we had good results from talking with Dave Bailey over there at Mason County Title. That a lot of those people parked there during the day, and that they would easily move. And I also spoke with the fire hall there, and they're more than willing to park around the other side and loosen up those spots for events and stuff that are for that. So we have explored that a little bit, but I get what you're saying. It'd be nice if they had some designated spots, but I'm not sure, like you said, how you work around the ordinances to do that. So, but we'll,
Looking for just that particular city participation, this is
Yeah.
particular power to do that. If you can find a way, it would really be a nice gesture.
well, I'll revisit it with the fellows again and see if we can come up with some alternatives there. So.
All right, thank you very much. Moving right along, are we ready for a reading of the consent agenda? Could we please have a reading of the consent agenda?
Consent agenda, vouchers numbered 84521 through 84617 in the amount of $849,584.73. Excuse me. Payroll warrants numbered 72482 through 72658 in the amount of $634,823.12. Commission meeting minutes from business meeting of November 3rd, 2014, study session of November 10th, 2014. Interlocal agreement for the Sewer Funding Coalition. Authorize the city administrator to make necessary budget adjustments.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The agenda passes. There is no old business at this time, but it looks like we have 3 items under new business. And the first is our city engineer, Mike Michael, is going to talk to us about the Ingleside Booster Pump Design Amendment Number 3.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is a pretty quick and easy one. As everybody probably remembers, about a year ago, we made some changes to our design and design and construction standards. And here in the last month or so, we realized that that change actually impacted the design philosophy for this project, and realized we needed to do some additional frontage work from what we originally planned. So the amendment before you this evening is to get that additional design work completed, so we can include that in the site work bid package that we're hoping to get out early next year, and get that ready to go so we can get that project completed.
All right, I have reviewed the information in our packet, and this is not part of the $7 million water tank expansion program,
No, this is the little piece on the other side of town.
okay? So, is there any questions?
No.
Just that, I hate these amendments. It just keeps creeping. And the whole reason for this amendment is just for the frontage improvements, or were they left out of the original one, or why are all of a sudden this?
The frontage improvements were at a lesser level based on previous design and construction standards. With the new standards that were approved last year, additional improvement is now necessary, and so this is the work to complete the work, the design for that additional improvement that's now required.
So if I can understand, it was okay at the time in 2011, but because of the new standards, that is why the amendment was necessary.
Correct, and because we haven't actually went to contract and finished permitting our internal permits on this project, we're now required to meet the current standards.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay? So, it appears that the commission has enough information to request that this contract with Murray and Smith is placed on the consent agenda November 24th, 2014, authorizing the mayor to sign when returned from the contractor and the city administrator to make necessary budget modifications.
Dave has something.
Yes, Dave?
Would the commission feel better if we came back next week and gave you the details on that?
Yeah, I would, yeah, as a matter of fact.
I mean, it's no big deal. It's just
It's not a time-sensitive matter.
No.
Actually, it is somewhat time sensitive. We're starting to push up against a window of coordinating with delivery of the actual pump station. What kind of details are you thinking of?
You said there were changes to the standards. I just thought,
Basically, under the old standards, we didn't have to do much of any improvements. We had to do some pavement improvement in that area, and that was essentially it. Now, under the new standards, we have to do full curb, gutter, sidewalk, and additional pavement improvement above and beyond what was originally planned back in 2011.
Well, this is up by the water tower up there. Yeah, I'd be comfortable we're going to be talking about this at the retreat, aren't we?
yes.
Yes.
I'd like to pull this off if we could.
I second
At least
that.
till after that. Because I didn't realize that we're already in the design that's already outdated.
It's not that it's outdated. Under the current standards, the new standards that were adopted a year ago, additional improvements are now required in that area. That's the big crux
But this
here.
design started before we made those
Yeah.
changes.
But the project has not completed permitting and the approval process, so until we're fully permitted and ready to go to construction, just like with any project, whether we do it or
We have
not
to
somebody
meet the
else,
current standards.
we have to meet the current standards.
Well, I would like to, at the moment, give it as one more week to talk about it, because we are in the process of looking and reviewing those standards. And if there's a way that we can change this, I would be open not to have those standards, seeing as how it was approved under the old standard, and we're talking about a technical thing, and it's not part of our downtown corridor or right on Olympic Highway North. So, I'm in favor of relooking at those standards, and so I think, I don't know if we can or not, but I would like to take my opportunity this week to talk to our administrator about that on Thursday and see maybe he can get a little more information from you. Maybe Commissioner Olson can have some questions asked. I think I would rather, knowing that this is part of something that, as Commissioner Olson pointed, we are going to discuss this in our retreat. We may have some changes coming down the road real soon. I think we ought to probably, money is very important to all of us here, so I think I would probably like to take a little time to think about this. So we're just going to, what is the protocol for this then? We're going to just table this for a week?
Well, we're not going to get to the retreat until a week from tomorrow. So what we'd be looking at was putting it on under old business in 2 weeks. That
Can
would
we
be-
still meet if worst
I think
case scenario?
That's basically a 1-week delay from what we're talking about
Yeah.
right now, and I think we can make that work.
Yeah, I think we can include this under the frontage improvement discussion at the
Okay.
retreat. You're going to need to make some strategic decisions regarding that at the retreat, and I think now the complication comes in is that we're going to have time to modify the standards if in fact that's what you want to do. So they're going to go ahead and issue the bid in advance of that decision being made. So that could get us wrapped around the axle if you tell us one thing at the retreat, and then when the time for the ordinance comes, you'll have to, if you change it again, it could complicate matters with the
Yeah, I
bid.
don't want to get wrapped around an axle. I've never been there before, but I don't want to go down that road. I just know this is something we've been talking about. Here is a immediate case. We may not be able to resolve it, but I think I would like a little more information at my conference with the city administrator this week and look at our options and not spend hours here, debating this. Maybe there's not much we can do at this point, but I agree with Commissioner Olson very much that if it's something that was approved under old standards, now we have new standards, and those standards we may tweak and change, then are we doing something right in this little gap? I just would like to know our options. So I think we'll table this and bring it back next week under old business.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay? How do you feel about that? You think that's a good idea?
I think that's a great
Is that right?
idea. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
All right.
Actually,
All right,
fine with that.
very good. Thank you. Next on the agenda is Lake Boulevard restoration, and I've been hearing Lake Boulevard for 3 years, so I'm really glad that we're getting close to working on that street, because there are certain people that is the ultimate goal for the city road crews. And so, anyway, Michael, again, you're going to talk to us about that.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you again. Yeah, and actually, this is relatively small. It's about 2.7% of the original contract, which typically our director could handle. However, this is related to the water fund. It's a piece of work that was not originally anticipated when we started Lake Boulevard. We didn't anticipate doing any of the underground utility work, but as we got talking about issues, in particular the Second and Wyandotte project that the water crews did this summer, we realized that there's a similar issue on a larger scale in this area, and the main that exists in Lake Boulevard is that bigger issue. It's currently a 6-inch main, doesn't currently meet our standards, and with some of the failures that the water crew was concerned about with the Second and Wyandotte, or Second and Euclid, whatever the labels were, failures and that need for an additional loop there. We have a very similar problem here and an opportunity to get it done and not have to tear new pavement up in the future. So because this is brand new work, we actually have to bring this forward to the commission to approve this. We have requested, it appears tentatively to be in the budget for the water fund, the construction piece for next year. But this would be the design piece to support that, to get it into the bid documents and ready to go. So Shekar Jewel has given us an estimate of $12,947 to do the design work for the replacement of the water main there. We are looking at about 2,200 feet of replaced water main, essentially from Wyoming down to University. Upsizing that all to 12-inch main to set us up for the future to be able to much better serve the east half of the south part of town.
Questions or comments for Michael?
So the total contract for design and the project is a little under $500,000,
For design of the project,
Just
yes.
design?
Just
it's
design.
$500,000?
Yes.
And why, I'm still not sure where the water line is there. It look, on the map, it doesn't look like it's under the road.
It's out under the edge of the road. Based on the preliminary layouts, it looks like it's going to actually probably be under the pathway that will be out in that section.
And which side is the pathway going to be on?
Northerly side,
It is only going to be on one side of the road, the pathway.
correct.
And how was that chosen?
Through, various discussions, primarily about connectivity with the various areas that our goal is to connect up with pedestrians. Also due to existing grade constraints and such. Put it on the south side, we get into more fill to get the width and the locations that we need. And we really don't connect up without having to cross Lake Boulevard, some of those larger residential areas that our goal is to connect to.
And the 6 inches has been serving that area for how many years? Just fine? And
Well,
now we need to upgrade it? I mean, it's not a growth area.
but it serves it at a lesser extent, particularly as you get farther east in the zone. It's a bottleneck to letting the water get over to the east side of Olympic Highway South in particular. Some of the low pressure zones that we have over in that area are related to these undersized pipes in the interconnect zone there.
And so what's the cost of the project then?
We're estimating right now without having the design in place, because it's fairly standard construction, not real deep, not a lot of other utilities to fight with. We're estimating about $250,000 to do this water main replacement.
So the design's twice what the job is?
No. This is the entire design.
Oh, you said first it was just a design.
Yeah, this is the entire design. This is the design of the entire roadway package, including now an additional
okay.
$12,000 for
Okay.
the water main.
And the water line work itself is about $250,000.
The water main work itself appears to be about $250,000. We'll know a little bit better once we get into the design a little bit and get a few
And
details.
it's not something we could put off. I mean, it's, we're stretching it as it is to complete that whole project up
We
there.
could, but it's a cost efficiency item now. We can save quite a bit of money. Probably, we would at least double the cost of the project by doing it later.
The water line project.
Yeah. Just because we likely would have to replace the pathways completely, so in that case, we're looking at in the neighborhood of about 1,500 feet of asphalt pathway that would be done here in the next couple of years and then torn up and replaced a few years later. We also have a section between approximately Arcadia intersection and University that's going to have to be under the pavement just because of the more narrow constraints in that zone, so.
Not to interrupt Commissioner Olson's flow here, but there's one principle that if you're going to remove pavement and you're going to repave, you want to make sure the underground utilities are currently brought up to, that's a principle, and I think we all agree to that. I guess in my understanding that we're going to be placing it under a pathway. So theoretically, the main road will not, if we did it later, the main road would not have to be disturbed.
That's
The
correct.
pathway, will it be a paved path then?
Yes.
It's a paved path?
Yes.
And that has to be done according to all the agreements and contracts we've been doing. And this water line, that path would have to be removed in order to redo that line at that time.
Right,
We
based
are-
on the
okay.
data we have right now, that looks like the most likely location that this new main will be. It'll be right under that path.
Now, is the pathway going to butt up against the travel lane? Or
No,
is there going to be like a bioswell?
it's not so much a bioswale. A lot of similar fill to Shelton Springs Road. The path does meander up in and out away from the edge a little bit more than it does along Shelton Springs Road, but it's that similar kind of feel, not necessarily a bioswale between, but grass
There's
and,
not room enough to put that water line there then, in between the pathway and at a later date?
you're still looking at increased cost to do it that way, and you're still looking at some fairly significant sections of the pathway that likely would have to be replaced.
We're just, these questions are important. I appreciate Commissioner Olson's comments, and it spurs my mind, because I read this stuff and sometimes I was thinking it was down the center of the road. You got to do what you have to do. Now there's a little bit more leeway here, but we have some water flow problems already. But I'm working, quite heavily on trying to find more money for the city, and now this said, explain to me, it says this portion of the project will be funded by the utility funds. So maybe you can explain to me a little bit more about, this is an extra on top of what we had already planned on for Lake Boulevard. So if it's paid for out of the utility funds, how does that, we just raise the funds?
We have, based on the work we've done with the budget, there's sufficient reserve funds in the water utility to pay for this work. That's why we've brought it forward both in the budget process for construction next year and this right now.
Planning that this would have to be done, or that's why you have the reserves set aside for this type of...
For these kind of jobs,
These kinds
correct.
of jobs, okay.
So, yeah, this is not coming out of the general fund. This would be wholly funded as a separate schedule, likely under the bid contracts from the water utility, and an improvement to that system and not part of the road system per se.
I have a question. Is this a surprise that we need to update the water system there?
I don't know that it's a surprise, but there's been a known need to do some improvements in the angle side pressure zone, particularly in the areas that help serve the eastern portion of it. There wasn't a strong realization of this specific bottleneck in the distribution system until I was looking at some system map information relative to the small project that the crews did earlier this year.
Okay, so, and this is two separate projects, the Pioneer Way Lake Boulevard repaving has been planned for a while. Is it typical to, it's typical, I'm assuming, to look at the utilities ahead of time and identify that, and in this case, we just weren't aware of that?
It wasn't so much we weren't aware of it. We felt that there were other future projects that could be done, and because of the more problem financial status of the water utility at the time this was started, we chose not to do anything with the water. As we looked at it more in depth this summer, realized that was maybe not the best decision back in 2011, or 2012, excuse me, when we started the Lake Boulevard project, started the funding search for that. And again, Commissioner Olson has a very good point. This isn't a must-do, but it's a very cost-effective way to do it now if the commission chooses to, and that's what we're recommending at this point.
Is there a possibility of moving the pathway to the other side?
Not and effectively meet the goals of the funding for the road project itself. We end up creating more safety issues by having the primary pedestrian pathway on the other side.
Help me get a visual. I'm not sure. I thought that road ran north-south, so
It runs kind of diagonal. So if you're
which
heading
side
out of
is
time, if you're heading out of town, the pathways are on the north, where the larger developments are. Or on the right, excuse me. We keep saying north, but as you're heading out of town, what we're calling the north is the right side of the road.
So where the curve is, it's kind of on the inside of
Be
the
on the
curve
inside of
rather
the
than
curve,
outside.
Meridian Park, all of those larger clusters of residential development along Lake Boulevard as you're heading towards the county line.
So can we design this now and not make the decision to do it?
We could.
So
Yeah.
And this design will suffice for a few years.
Yeah, that's definitely something to do. In fact, in our budget proposal for the water utility for next year, that is one of the caveats, that we'll relook at the water's financial status before we actually award this schedule in any future contract, so.
Well, then I think it makes sense to go ahead with the design then, as long as we're not committing to doing the work, because I still have some finance questions that I think we're going to come up down the road. I would like to see some kind of maps or something. I mean, some drawings would really be nice, for some visuals for us, like, you know, where the water line actually runs and where the sewer lines potentially run and that kind of stuff.
Sewer is the next one that we're
I knew
looking
that
at,
was.
and that one, the sewer utility, it appears last discussion to be in a little worse financial state as far as doing a project of this nature, even though ideally that would be the one we would for sure do, because that really does have to be under the pavement. I am still working with finance to see if we can massage the sewer utility funds to maybe be able to do a similar addition to the Lake Boulevard project for the sewer utility as well.
So the extra amount is, the design portion for the water is the $12,947.
Yep,
And that's
Correct.
all you're really looking for tonight?
correct. That is
Okay.
exactly.
And we
We're
have the
looking
right-
for approval of a water project in the design amount of $12,947 to be done as an amendment to the existing Lake Boulevard Pioneer Way project.
Okay, and when would you have an idea about the sewer?
Had hoped to have some information from finance by now, but I'll be working with Kathy in the next few days to see where they're at on getting me that last bit of information on the sewer utility fund, so that we can look and see if we can squeeze that project out as well.
All right, so it appears that we are all in agreement that we can place this on the consent agenda for November 24th, 2014, the design, extra design portion only. So, okay, let's do it then. All right, thank you. Next is a Public Works Trust Fund, sorry, Public Works Trust Fund loan repayment date amendment, and that will be talked to us about our Public Works Director, Greg Clark.
Mayor, Commissioners, public worst, I
Yeah.
hope not. Public's best.
There you go.
This is a really kind of an administrative change that has been given to us from the Department of Commerce, who is the agency that does the financials with the Public Works Trust Fund. And really what they're doing is shifting the loan payment. It's an annual payment, and instead of it happening on July 1, which is the way it's set up right now, they want to change it from that being the beginning of the cycle to actually at the end of the cycle have the payments made June 1st. So what this is on all of the trust fund loans that we have, and you can see the list of them there, we have Basin 1, Basin 2, wastewater treatment plant property acquisition, Basin 5 construction, the satellite reclaim wastewater treatment plant project, and the Front Street pump station and overflow. Those were the trust fund loans that are affected by this. Those payments, instead of them being on July 1, would now be required to be made on June 1 at the end of their cycle. So it's just a month change. It's an administrative thing that's across the state. They're asking all agencies to do this. There really isn't an alternative. They're telling us that this is what they want us to do,
They don't need us, huh?
but they want us to pay on the right time. So we just want to make the change, and Dave, I believe, has a...
Yeah, I would expect that we probably do have a choice. The issue is whether we want to avail ourselves of it. I've heard about this before, and what the legislature's doing is getting paid early so they can put that revenue in the prior fiscal year, in their prior fiscal year. It'll give them additional cash that they can count toward the expenses in that year, and then it'll go away. The benefit to us is we get to make 11 months worth of interest payments instead of 12. And so there's a slight drop in the amount that we'll have to pay. Although there probably will be a slight amount of additional interest that we'll pay because we'll be paying later than we would have otherwise. So it's kind of a gimmick but there is a little bit of a benefit in it for us in terms of our cash flow issues, and it'll be up to you. But I wanted to give you that broader political perspective on what's actually happening.
We could resist it, but it's really, why would we want to do that?
Well,
really?
yeah, I mean, probably you would want to as a philosophical statement,
Yeah,
but
No.
I don't know that you're really into that.
I don't think I'm into it.
Yeah. So,
Well,
And just for an additional note, EWC actually recommended that we hold off on this while they looked into it. They came back a few weeks ago and said, yeah, after looking at it, we don't see any real issues with this. We're recommending moving forward with taking this to your various commissions, so.
all right, any more questions or comments about this? It appears that we're going to be good little troopers and go along with the program. So, let's put this on the November 24th consent agenda and authorize the mayor to sign. All right, next is administration reports.
my activities this week, I'll be attending a couple of meetings relating to the Sewer Funding Coalition. I'll be at there's a meeting at AWC tomorrow morning with one of the environmental groups that's meeting with us to talk about it. And then on Wednesday, there's also a meeting at the Department of Ecology where we're telling the staff there, telling them our story and tell them about the Sewer Funding Coalition. And that's then the usual meetings after that.
We do have an update on the Sewer Funding Coalition that last time reported, I think we had 14 or 15 cities, and now we're up to, do you know what?
We just added another. I don't have an accounting, but
Oh.
I was going to give a report on that when on administrative final touches.
Oh, okay.
So
I've done this before. I don't want to take the thunder out of the storm here. So let's continue on and move forward to another opportunity, general public comment. If anyone would like to speak, they have an opportunity to do that at this time. If not, we will move forward into the administration final touches phase of the meeting.
just it's our intention, Amanda and I talked about this today, to come back to you with a detailed report at next week's study session and give you the kind of information that you're talking about, including the dollars, the number of contacts, the results we've had to date, the future plans, that sort of thing relating to the Sewer Funding Coalition. So,
Okay, that'll be
Now-
next meeting.
are there other touches, Vicki?
I will be briefing the court grant that we have received an award for that, so I'll be bringing it to the commission for your consideration, and hopefully you'll approve that, and we'll get the money for the court for our public defenders.
Okay, others?
I have one. Just want to remind everybody that the Christmastown USA Christmas Parade is coming up. According to this, it's December 6th on a Saturday in the afternoon, and all three sitting commissioners here will be in that parade, and so we're looking forward to seeing your smiling faces out there so we can wave and throw candy at you. So,
No,
well, you can't throw candy at them?
read your directions.
Oh, my goodness. What have they done to our parades if you can't throw candy at people? Okay, so we're still looking forward to having the parade and seeing all of you there. Any more administration final touches? Seeing none, our next meeting will be November 24th at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. This meeting is adjourned. Can't throw candy anymore.